The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.
The East is where we're from. The 12 tribes of Israel. In 721 BC, the Assyrian king, he took us down, we fell. With a great escape we went through the Euphrates. The Lord held the water still. To a land where no mankind dwelt, we went. The 12 tribes of Israel. That's who we be, we be. Manasseh, the Cubans, Ephraim, from Puerto Rico, and Valley from the arms of Hawaii. The Lord is calling back Israel. Zebulon, from Panama, Gad, the North American Indians, Simeon, the Dominicans, the highest gathering in Israel.
All right, shalom, shalom family. Welcome to another edition of the GOCC Friday Patreon check-in. This is Elder Lawyer filling in for Elder Ricard Shiar, who is currently in the midst of some travels, as you all know. Before we get into it, let me just first make sure that everything is coming through nice and clear. I just want to do a quick check, and with that confirmation, we'll get right into it. All right. All right, how we coming through? Shalom, shalom. In fact, Shabbat shalom. It looks like the sun is on its way down, so Shabbat shalom to you all. All right, so we got confirmation that everything is coming through nice and clear, so let's get into it. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praise and honor to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshai Wavawak, for allowing us to come before you for another edition of the GOCC Friday Patreon check-in. We have quite a few things in store, so we're not going to spare a minute. We're going to jump right into it. As you can all see, the topic of discussion is broken politicians in a broken world. What do we expect? Time after time again, we hear about corruption, government corruption, corruption amongst politicians. We hear about political scandals involving high-profile political figures. And to some degree, I understand exactly why these types of stories and this type of news and, when we receive these things, when we see it, it bears witness to the truth of the Bible, of who these people really are, what they truly represent. But now the question is, what do we expect when we see these things transpiring? When we see these things coming to pass? When we see these things being reported on the news? When we see these things unfolding, and sometimes high-profile court cases, but in most times, we see these things being swept under the rug. But however the fallout is, or whatever comes of it, whether it goes to court, whether the high-profile figures that are involved, whether they're brought to justice, or if not, maybe they're protected, maybe things just get swept under the rug. Regardless of what happens, the question for us is, what do we expect? Are we expecting these politicians to be a representation of all that is good, all that is wholesome, all that is righteous, all that is upright? Or do we look at it and we simply say, well, we understand, number one, that Satan promised the world to Christ. But we know Christ rejected. Satan gave an offer, but Christ refused. What was the offer? You all know the story. Christ was in the wilderness. It says that he was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to fast and to pray for 40 days and 40 nights. And as he embarked upon the end of that fast, Satan came to tempt him, offering him many things, one of which was to rule all the kingdoms of the world. Only if Christ were to bow down and worship him. By him, meaning Satan. And we know what Christ said. Christ's response was, well, we shall only worship the Most High God and him alone. But now the question is, well, if the offer was to rule all the kingdoms of the world, with the agreement to bow down and worship Satan, and again, we know Christ refused, but if that was the offer that Christ refused, the question is, who took up the offer? Who agreed to the offer to say that we will be willing to bow down to Satan himself? We will bow down to Lucifer himself if it means we can gain power, authority, rulership, wealth, riches, fame in this life, in this world. Remember, Christ said that, well, my time has come in which I must depart out of this world, and that the prince of this world shall come, and he have nothing in me. So if we know it's the prince of this world who is ruling, and if it's the prince of the world who is offering power, rulership, and authority in this earth to those who are willing to worship him, the question is, who took up the offer? Well, you have to look no further than to who is ruling as we speak. We have to look no further than who is in power as we speak. And once you make that simple observation and you come to the conclusion of who is in power, who is in ruling, who has authority in the earth, you can now draw the conclusion as to who took up the offer. And if they took up the offer to bow down and worship Satan himself for their power, for their rulership, for their authority, what do we expect from them? How do we expect these people to be operating in the earth? Well, we're going to discuss that on the other side. We're going to discuss that on the other side. For those who are new, by the other side, we mean Patreon. For those who are interested in Patreon, we have in subscription a $5 a month subscription for those who are interested, where you can come and check out some of our content that we're able to deal with, and we're able to expound and able to teach unfiltered, unadulterated, without all of the limitations that come with YouTube. Right? So that's what we're going to be discussing on the other side, amongst other things. But before we go there, just a few scriptures to set the tone before we make our transition, to put things in their proper perspective. Again, the topic of discussion: broken politicians in a broken world. What do we expect? Now, the question is, many of you may be asking, well, what do I mean? We understand what you may mean by broken politicians, and I'm going to expound upon that as well, currently, and as well as when we get to the other side. But what do you mean by a broken world? Okay, well, let's get into it. We already discussed the prince of this world. Okay, we already discussed the prince of this world. Right? When you read the Bible, it tells us in the book of Job, chapter 9, verse number 24. Job 9 and verse number 24. Let me get it real quick. All right, one moment. This thing is moving just a little bit slow for me. Okay, Job 9 and 24. And before we go there, let's go to the book of Psalms 51, verse 5. Psalms 51 and 5. Let's go there first. All right, let me pull it up. I had to switch the Bible program. These programs are acting just a little bit slow, but we're going to work it out. All right, Psalms 51, verse number 5, where it says here, "Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me." Again, Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. What is this telling us? This is telling us that mankind in general was shapen in iniquity. Okay, this would be the state of mankind in general. By mankind, we mean specifically the descendants of Adam. Genesis 1:26 says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the earth, over the fowl of the air, over the fish of the sea, over the beasts of the field, so on and so forth." So we know that man eventually is identified in Genesis 2:7 as Adam, where it tells us that God formed man, Adam, or Adam, from the dust of the ground. We also know that eventually that same Adam would commit an iniquity, which would affect all of his children. We, being Adam's children, are now a fulfillment of Psalms 51, verse number 5. And when I say we, we're talking about all of Adam's children, both Jew as well as Gentile. The book of 2nd Ezra in the Apocrypha, chapter 6. Let me get it real quick. 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse number 54 tells us, "And after these Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all." So we all come from Adam. "And the people also whom thou hast chosen." Right? So the chosen people come from Adam, but also the Gentiles, those who are not of the chosen seed, also come from the seed of Adam. Right? And when we're talking about that iniquity, being shaped in that iniquity, that being shaped in iniquity did not only affect the Israelites, it also affected the Gentiles. So it says, "Of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen," right? So the other people, as it says in verse number 56, "As for the other people," what does he mean by "as for the other people"? Well, the other people are those who do not come from the seed that was chosen. Okay? The other people are those who do not come from the seed that was chosen, otherwise known biblically as the Gentiles, otherwise known biblically as the heathen. Okay? Otherwise known as the Goyim. Okay? Which is simply a Hebrew word meaning Gentile or nation. Right? So going back to the book of Psalms, chapter 51 and verse number 5, it says, "I was shapen in iniquity." Who is the I? Well, we know David is writing this from a first-person point of view, but David's experience, David being shapen in iniquity, was not an experience that only he himself was dealing with. Okay? Meaning David was not the only one who was a product of this fallen state, of this broken state. Okay? This was becoming of all the children of Adam, David being one of them. Okay? So why am I bringing this out in regards to politicians? Well, politicians, regardless of what they believe, regardless of their philosophical leanings, we understand that the politicians of this earth, those who are in control of the governments of this earth, or at least hold government positions in the earth. Now we know above them, we know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of the darkness of this world, against wickedness in high places, we understand that that's who is behind all of this. But just dealing on the physical level, we understand that those who hold government positions are men and women who are descendants from Adam. And they too are a reflection and a fulfillment of being shaped in iniquity. That doesn't change when they become a governor. It doesn't change when they become a councilman, when they become a president. Okay? When they become a mayor. They are still a reflection and a fulfillment of what? Being shapen in iniquity. So what happens when a person in that position who was shaped in iniquity does not, number one, address the iniquity, number one, does not fight the iniquity, doesn't fight the sin, doesn't overcome the sin, but in fact, number two, find themselves in an environment that feeds the iniquity, finds themselves in an environment that feeds the sin, that feeds the corruption. What do you think will become of that person in position? Well, eventually, you'll get exactly what we see today. Corrupt politicians, corrupt government figures. Now, this is just a tidbit of what we're going to be covering. We're going to go in depth on the other side. Again, we're going to be touching on things that we will not and cannot necessarily go into on YouTube without there being issues with the channel. So, at this time, I must transition to Patreon. For those who are interested in Patreon, Elder Dell, you can go ahead and put that in the chat. You can put it in the chat. Okay? And with that, we are going to conclude. For those who are with us on Patreon, those who are Patreon supporters, we will see you on the other side. Just give me a few minutes. I'm going to shut down the YouTube. I'll be on the Patreon no later than, let's give it 3-4 minutes. For the rest of us, I will see you tomorrow for the Sabbath. I will be filling in for Elder Ricard Shiar. So tomorrow's Sabbath will actually be a continuation of this, but we're going to see this. We're going to deal with it tomorrow from the solution standpoint. Okay? What is the solution? Today we'll be focusing on the issue. Tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with what is the solution to broken politicians, broken government in a broken world. Right? But I say that to say, for those who are not with us on Patreon, who cannot be with us for whatever reason, we will see you tomorrow for the Sabbath right here on YouTube, A Gathering 144. So, bless you all. May you all have a blessed Sabbath, and I will, if it be the Most High's will, see you all tomorrow. Blessings and shalom. Also, let me mention this as well. For those who are interested in the Hebrew and Bible Academy, we are entering into week number 7. We're going to be dealing with the split between Israel and Judah. And in that lesson, we're going to be examining the political history of the nation of Israel. For those who are wondering, well, is politics, is this a new thing? You know, the way the corruption and all these things we see in the earth, is this new? Well, we're going to explore that and more in Sunday's lesson dealing with the split between Israel and Judah, the political history of the nation of Israel. For those who are interested, you can go to historytimes.org. Again, we're in week 7, but any information that you did not receive from the prior weeks will be sent, so don't worry. You'll get everything that we've discussed up until this point, but we will be having our lesson this Sunday dealing with the history of the split of the nation of Israel. With that, bless you all and Shabbat Shalom.
The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that he used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.